Thank you, David.
You want?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Clotter, out-of-district special ed transportation.
Yep, in your packet, there's a request for proposal that for spent out-of-district transportation, a contract is expiring, and there is a requirement to either go out to bid or the option to extend this contract for 1 year. The current provider, Connecticut Transportation, who's offered to hold their prices, no increase, no COLA, for 1 year. So I verified that with the legal team that we have, and they said, well, you guys, I don't want to be reading this if you already know it, but from statutory perspective, it's legally permissible to extend the transportation contract into a 5th year without going out to bid. There's a statutory restriction that no transportation contract be longer than 5 years on its face, and so after 1 year extension, you will need to go out to bid and draw up a new agreement. However, it's imperative that you review your purchasing policies to ensure that you are in compliance with their terms and not required to go out to bid after 4-year agreements. So I went to the policy, and there are no requirements in the policy for new contracts to go out to bid for transportation. So I'm at the board's disposal to either run with this RFP, but you have an option, and I have the bids from the last round of bids and all the bidders. Connecticut Transportation came in lower on all these special runs that required very specific types of van transportation and harnesses. I do know that other vendors would like to bid on it again, but I very much doubt that, since they were low bidders the last time and got the contract, and that is their niche, that the other players in that niche are going to be able to beat it. But I do think no matter how you cut it, there's going to be an increase. And there's potential savings based on what they've spent this year for out-of-district transportation to save, providing there is no increase, about $30,000. So that's where we're at. If you want me to run with the RFP, I'm going to get it out. I'm going to run an ad this weekend, and then we're going to notify all the people that bid the last time. On the 22nd, the clock will start ticking, and then we'll have the opening on July 2nd in time for the August contract.
I'm in favor of going out.
There's a couple of changes that we have
Yes, I
recommended at
put it in
budget
there.
made.
Yes. You wanted language about having the background investigation done for drivers, and there are a couple other things that I put there.
I couldn't see it in here, but I might just be missing.
Yeah, I think it's G. It's G. On page.
G, page 7.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, because that was where we were a little sticky on that.
Yeah.
It said, shall at the request of the board. We were thinking that they should be background checked, not just if we requested it, but.
Oh, you're right, and I do apologize. I will strike that. I thought the imperative was that the criminal background checks be reported to the board.
And it should just read, the contractor shall perform criminal record
Right,
checks.
just
Okay.
at the
Get
request
rid of
the
shall
board.
and add the word.
Good show forward,
No, you keep shall.
right?
Contractor shall
Yeah,
perform
sure, keep
criminal.
shall, yeah.
Okay.
Just at the request of the board, because that only makes it
Yeah,
appear
sure.
that if we have a question on one,
Right.
we'll ask them to do it, where I would like to be sure they're all cleared before they get on, drive the bus with our special ed
Absolutely.
kids.
Yeah, they are, but it doesn't hurt to have that extra level of saying.
If we go out for an RFP, I'm assuming the offer comes off the table from Connecticut Transportation.
Yeah, they most surely will raise their prices, and probably still win. But, and I have no, obviously, I'm at the board's beck and call, do whatever you want. I thought, you know, since they were the incumbent, I would ask them. I was actually a little shocked that they were willing to hold their prices for a 5th year. But ultimately, you know, it's anybody's guess, you know, how hungry the other vendors are, you know, they may surprise us.
Well, remember the last time we did the special ed transportation and we sat down through that, there was a huge discrepancy because of the specialized transportation
Right.
involved. So if they're willing to hold the price for another year,
And this is.
I'd much prefer to take and hold the price. I
Yeah,
remember
you're
that,
familiar with this.
unfortunately.
Yeah, so it was quite a laborious
Yeah.
process, and they did, you know, they bought vehicles when necessary, and the only other thing that's kind of the intangible, and again, I got no skin in the game, but from working with the special education people this year, the kids now are used to, you know, being with these buses for another year. I mean, it would be, for continuity's sake, would be good for them, but again, it's just an aside.
Are you able to get some numbers from other school districts that would be similar in nature to see whether or not you think we're actually getting this bargain that?
I checked with Bristol.
I don't know, I'm just
No,
asking.
I checked with Bristol, which is twice the size of us, but they go with the same program. They've had 4 different vendors, and they just go back to Connecticut Transportation because they have the safest record, they're the most reliable, and the least problems with families because they're transporting our neediest students.
And that's kind of their special.
Yeah, that's their niche in transportation.
When
Have we
I,
had any problems with the current provider?
no. And when I spoke with them, I asked them about, you know, some things that are being developed in the transportation industry, and they're kind of way out ahead of it. And I can't speak for these other, you know, companies that did back then, but in terms of, you know, route management, sometimes I understand from Ms. Murphy down in Sped, she'll get a call from a parent saying, you know, where is my bus right now? So now they have GPSs, they're able to say your bus is right here. Not that it's running late, but the parent might, you know, kids have special needs. So they can identify where on the grid they are, and other things like that.
What is the dollar amount right now that we would be paying? if we renew?
Well, I'm looking at year 3, and I'll just pick out one that was, you know, spent a lot of money. That's what I'm gonna
Oh,
give.
okay.
I'll give you one school here, but I can share this with you anyway. CJR in Litchfield. This company came in at $131,165. Another vendor that we used came in at $216,450. The next lowest came in at $211,760. And that was for 10 students. And of the vehicle, one run with 2 aides, 10 students, and they were purchasing a vehicle specifically for that run. And the thing is, it was interesting, not to go off on a tangent, but today I was able to attend a Medicaid presentation because I wanted to get my arms around how we can suck as much money out of the federal government as possible, or state government rather. And there's all these new requirements for, you know, transportation and meeting specific requirements in order to collect the Medicaid dollars. So, again, I think knowing that these guys are like the leader in that niche, they were the low bidder last time, they're holding their prices, and that they meet all these requirements in terms of billing. To me, you know, if you're asking me, I would say for one more year, it makes sense. But again, you know, another vendor could, you know, could surprise
You
you.
get Medicaid reimbursement for this service?
You can for some of them, but they're,
What is our budget for this year that What are we spending this year on transportation, and what do we budget for next year for special ed?
For special education, for this particular vendor, in the report, they haven't posted the June transportation numbers for them yet. 1 second. It was,
Hold on, I got my spreadsheet from last night.
yeah,
Sped transportation. $1,610,127.59.
right. And so far, without the posting, thank you. Oh, I forgot you were here, my angel of mercy. So I ran a accounts payable invoice report up through today, and $1,029,540. And like you said, we got stuff that's gonna be hitting by the end of the year. So, 3% on that.
How much,
What do we budget for next year?
I haven't had a new world here, so. I want to say 1, 3. Okay, give me 1 second. It's got a VPN in here.
Dan, you said we budgeted,
That was this year, what we've spent this year so far.
Budget, we did the year-end closeout, so you'll find that in the package tonight. 1.6 million is our projected closeout number
for 14-15.
For transportation?
for transportation, for special ed.
And that all would have gone to this vendor?
No,
They're not a district.
we got that list that showed, because some of them were special runs that had to be different
Went to different
companies.
So this one isn't all-inclusive in
Okay. New world
Dan,
continues
do
to-
you see, is there any correlation of the revenue that you may have talked about as far as Medicare reimbursement?
Actually, there's a sheet in here projected through the end of the year, but
I was gonna say, I haven't seen anything that correlates between the Medicaid reimbursement and the
Oh,
transportation
yeah.
side. Medicaid reimbursement has to do with usually tuition that's spent on the students themselves.
thank you.
No, tuition
part of
is
it.
for therapies. Medicaid comes from therapies provided to students, not tuition and not transportation.
But
No,
sorry,
that's-
but that just brought over the budget book before I could get into new world.
You get the educational cost sharing.
1,329,000. That's for sped.
That's for total?
At a district.
That's 5510?
Yeah, 5,110, 80, 5510.
That's for 15-16?
Yeah.
So you're projecting $300,000 less from what we're spending this year?
Yep.
We
Our
had,
projection for this year
we
is
had-
156.
Well, Dan just said
As
close
of
to
the
1.6.
official budget meeting from Monday night when we were given the projections for, nope, that's ground maintenance, hold on, there we go. 2015 projections, all the way back to the end to sped transportation. And through May, we've spent $1,222,690.23. Estimate for June is another $99,278.56, with additional runs added in for a total of $70,778. Homeless runs, which I have no clue.
That's not special ed, that's student services.
but that was
you
a
can keep it
projection
in.
through the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's
So
we
by
have
the time
to-
you get down the 504 program, the pre-K program, you're at 1.610,12759.
But there were, based on discussions with special education, there were some extremely high costing children that had to be transported out of district. So over time, it has continued to go up. I think we figured
I was gonna say.
3% a year, but
Yeah,
it was an
previous year I
anomaly
thought
this
it
year.
was 1.4.
Right.
And the year before that was 1.1 or 1.2, as I remember.
But this
So
was a-
every year it seems to go up $200,000.
Right.
And why are we budgeting 1.3 for 15, 16?
That I can't answer for you.
Mr. Potter?
Pardon?
The 504 piece is
Right.
regular ed.
Right.
I guess the question is Dan just gave a total for student services, line item 5510. Student transportation, $1,610,127.59. Projection for year end. What have we budgeted is Mr. Nargi's question. For next year.
1.328, and like I said, there were a lot of drivers that created, you know, Beth Murphy isn't here to speak to it, but there were drivers in this year's transportation that created demands on the system that were such that it drove special education much higher than it would have done.
But then those aren't going to be here next year?
Well, I mean,
Well, you're not only not covering this year's budgeted amount, but you're doing what happened the previous budget year, which is you're actually decreasing what we're spending this year. And it seems like there's this pattern of doing that year over year. I'm only surmising from what I understand. And
well, this began, Andrew, this was an evaluation that was done with special education based on their projections for students that they knew that were going to be transported. And what I was told was not to budget something that you think might happen, but to budget.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
You have kids
I mean,
graduating.
I would love
And
to put.
every year it seems to come back and bite us somewhere.
I know, I would love to be able to say, like we talked about, we should put jump it up, but like, for instance, I don't know if you want to speak to the fact that the budget this year for DCF place students was so high, based on what had happened in the past. But this year, there were very, very few
Exactly.
DCF place students, so we ended up with a giant chunk of, I'm not being argumentative, but with a giant chunk of money in there that at the end of the year, that didn't get spent. And my directive, I think, from the board was budget to what you know is gonna happen, not what you think might happen. And that's a classic example of, based on the prior year, there was a
Right.
bunch of kids that were DCF placed.
This was just something I've been thinking about. Is there, and probably isn't possible, but just like the insurance, we're self-insured and there's X amount of money that really gets to go back into the system. Is there some way to do this with special ed so that some years we may have a shortfall, some years we have overages? If we had X amount of money that just sat there permanently, this way we could just budget correctly, and then if we need the extra money, it sits there. If not, it just stays there. I think it would be a much
We're looking
better
for
way.
an undesignated fund to be.
Yes,
there
and
to
it would
handle
just have to
emergencies.
be for that. I mean, is that possible? Because I think it would resolve a lot of the board's problems that we have year and over. Because it's just impossible to,
Right, we'd have to go to the Board of Finance for this.
I think it's something that we should do because we run into a lot of problems year in and year out.
But
Because
I promise you, one thing I am gonna do this year, and that was the reason why I went and sat through that meeting today. We gotta do everything we can do to get, and this is something that I know is near and dear to your heart, pull as much money as we can, and not to play the system, but yeah, you know, that's basically what it is. All the people that were there from these big cities, like the lady from Hartford I was talking to, she plays the game, she plays the system, and there's a way to do it. And you gotta get with the people that know how to do it the best and do it the way they do it.
Right.
And I think we can get, you know, with this new IEP Direct Medicaid component that we're getting, I think there's opportunities to, in spite of all the roadblocks they put in the way, to try to get more money for the district.
Just give 2 seconds. One of the things we're looking at is the transiency within schools, the mobility. How many children come in, how many children go out, what are their needs? We want to get a grasp on that, because that also impacts our special education population.
You say we, meaning this board, or we, the state?
No, us
Okay.
leadership.
Yeah, just under.
Okay, we're doing an analysis now because we have some schools that are up to 35% students in and out, a change in students in and out over the course of a year. So when you have that kind of mobility, and you're trying to predict how much you're gonna need for special ed, how much you're gonna need for any type of support services, it gets very difficult because you can't say, in June, okay, here's our population moving forward. Because it could change by 1/3.
All right. Discussion of Board of Education retreat. We are scheduled for June 20th at 6 o'clock at Midgeon Avenue.
I'm in Washington for 3 days, 20th to the 22nd for work.
July. Yeah, I'm in New York.
Okay, I'll be in Virginia.
It'll be a
You
quick
should kill me,
meeting.
but if I'm Virginia, I'm going to Florida.
I'll be here.
I'll be with Dan.
Where's your love? Out of curiosity.
How was the date for that?
When the legal team to give it to us was available.
What was that date for?
Yeah. It's the only date they have is July.
There's the theme of this retreat.
I can't see each other, that's all next week.
You need lawyers.
Huh?
I have a day off next week.
I'm in Minnesota next week.
Well, it's planned for the 20th. We're going to be discussing, we're going to go over, make sure everyone has received a copy of the Code of Ethics. I have been informed how it is recorded at City Hall that we were all handed a set at inauguration, even though we weren't. So,
I got one in the minute.
right. But those of us that were on stage signed a sheet that was a sign-in sheet that also seconded as an acknowledgement that we should get our own copy.
I'm not sure I did that one.
Like the audit that
Yeah.
process?
I didn't do
What's that?
Like the audit that process?
Right, so we're just we're gonna go over it. We're gonna go over people that have conflicts, that have family members in the district, when you have to declare to not vote, to vote, just so that everybody's clear on the guidelines. And then open for other discussions of what would like to be covered at our board retreat, because that's only a portion of it. So if anyone has anything else they would like to add, if you could shoot me an email. We also will be going over our board goals for the 16-17 school year at that meeting. So I'm requesting from everyone that they send me their board goals for the 16-17 school year, so we can compile a list
When do you want those by?
by the meeting. As long as I have them prior to the meeting, anytime in the next 3-4 weeks would be great. Last year, we only had 3 participants, so I'm hoping for a better turnout this year.
Yeah, I thought the school crew was actually looking at doing that and bringing it forward to the July retreat.
We will be talking about that at our July meeting.
Well,
It
nobody-
doesn't stop you from soliciting.
Okay,
goals.
well, I wasn't aware of that. I know when it conferred that with me, so
Is there a way that we could try to plan this in time when more people can come?
I'll
I mean,
have
I
to
don't have
see
a
what I can
conflict
do.
on that day,
I'll
but
have
it
to
just
see
sounds
what-
like a lot of people do.
I'll have to see what I can do.
I mean, maybe we could like give you our summer schedules and see.
Maybe the chairman of the ethics commission could show up at our meeting instead of hauling some lawyer in at the expense to the board. And in fact, he is a lawyer, so.
I'd rather use our legal.
Well, but nobody's gonna be there. Well, I will.
Our legal team comes free, so they offer us so many hours a year of training, and they come at no cost to us, so.
Is it possible that if we're available on our business trips, that we could call into the meeting? I mean, I have a packed schedule, so I'm not sure, but
I'll reach out to them. That was the only date that they had available, so I'll reach out and see what they can do in early August.
I'll make sure the ice blast isn't squeaking too loud.
So, yeah.
Right. But I mean, if we could call in and we
So will
could
we.
make it work.
So will we.
Yeah. So is that a problem to call into a retreat? I mean, the city does.
The city does phone meetings all the time. As long as you can be heard, it's legal. Like I said, I'll reach out to them again, but if there's anything else that wants to be discussed at the retreat, right now it's goals. It's the, make sure everyone has a copy of the code of ethics and that they've received it.
Could we add vendor relations?
Sorry, just missed
Just like I think in covering all of it, to make sure we're all on the same page on all these items.
All right, that brings us up to our year-end projections, Mr. Potter.
Yes, I had an opportunity to go to Board of Finance last night, share with them the analysis that we did for all the schools, as well as technology and facilities, by taking the New World year-to-date expenditures for May and then projecting out what was going to be paid in June. We're able to come up with total negative operating amount of $261,317.36. The total capital fund ended up with a positive balance of $273,074.73. So the total operating capital came in at negative $588,242.63. Then taking into account the revenues, which on this 8.5 by 14 sheets on the left, for E-rate rebates, IRS propane rebates, energy give back from the Vogel Wetmore project. They've offered up cafeteria benefits plan, all these things that are aligned down the left-hand side, as well as some of the entitlement money that was available. We came up with $727,681.09 of total revenues, which were partially offset by the pending expenses that we have. Free and reduced lunch payment to the state, which is right now at $21,000, well below the high water mark of $36,000 it was at one point, and something that I would really, really like to see not occur next year. That's one of my goals. Tuition reimbursement and Board of Ed custodian pension payment. Those total expenses were $111,620. So the net of that was $616,061.97, which gave us a positive balance of $27,818.46. Last, I don't know if you want to speak to the presentation to the Finance Committee last night for the carryover.
Yeah, we requested from the city last night that $245,500 of capital, which is $114,550 from the Title IX softball field, $55,000 from IT, $38,950 in contingency from the ADA parking lot, and $37,000 in contingency for the energy project, be carried or be transferred from our capital to our operating funds, so that we reach this wonderful figure of $27,818.46. So we are moving capital into where we took balance.
Two questions. On the revenue, this $727,681, that is what we had budgeted as revenue, or this is revenue in excess of what we projected as revenue in our 14-15 budget
That's a
projection?
good question, Andrew, because for instance, the cafeteria benefits payment, that is something that you guys get year over year. At the end of the year, when they reimburse us from that account for their benefits. And the ROTC refund for the government is, that's an adjustment that's done at the end of the year. The facility use funds is $50,000 that we've never had to tap into before, because that's used primarily to pay for custodial overtime, but we had to grab some of that. And the same thing with at the bottom, the cafeteria custodial labor. We thought about it, since that's a self-funded program, and they generate revenue there. But custodians clean the rooms for them, that we should be able to, and going forward, you should be able to charge that account for their labor throughout the year. So that should be, revenue that we see every year. But like the IRS rebate for propane, that was not something that we had anticipated getting, because they had originally done away with that. The president had, or not the president, but somebody, I don't blame it on him. But we were able to, they reinstated it, so we were able to get $77,675, which is 50 cents on a gallon for the propane we bought this year for the school buses. And that's about it. I mean, the E-rate contributions that Dan had talked about for our telecom stuff, that was money that wasn't factored into the revenue for us, but it was money that we had got back in the form of a credit for discounts on our internet, active internet, and I guess telecom charges from them.
Basically voice services, the digital lines.
I wish
that number goes down next year drastically.
Yeah.
I wish in our budget process we would tighten up the revenue aspect of our discussion year over year I mean, that's actually excess money over what we projected. It's a large sum, so I think we should be able to be more on top, and maybe with harder work in your department, maybe we get more revenue. I'm not positive.
I'm all for that. I say put those lights in that ball field and let's get those kids playing, charge them.
Okay, the second question I have is on these capital projects. The fact that we're not doing them this year, again, maybe you can explain it, I don't understand it, but we're gonna have to do these before will these be priority items before we start what we project to be capital improvements for 15-16? Are they necessary? Are they a building block to something else that has to be?
No, when our capital budget was approved by the city,
Okay.
when we resubmitted our budget to them, we were asked to come in flat funded at capital.
Okay.
So we submitted to them a flat funded capital.
Right.
They approved a capital budget to us that's $160,000 higher than what we asked for. So there's $160,000 of undesignated capital that we could put towards technology, we could put towards, because there was a lot of projects we cut to get to that flat funded number.
Okay.
What we propose to do is to take the contingency money, the Title IX and the security, the Title IX softball improvements and the security upgrades for the cameras. Theoretically, you don't use the contingency money because Dave's going to manage these projects so well that we're not going to find any unforeseen things. And you end up with $160,000 between the softball field and the security upgrades. So you're only temporarily setting the contingency money in the account. Providing you don't use it, you have the money to fund the other two projects. So everything gets funded through that additional $160,000. Totally separate from what we're doing with the projects the ADA compliance projects that we talked about. So they're totally separate, but it was a neat package way for us to not say we're going to hold $70,000 in contingency and then go to the city and ask for $240,000 that we just can't afford, and they've got to take it out of the rainy day fund. This way, we self-funded it, and we have the additional money they gave us to use next year to fill the void that, by not doing these projects.
Thank you.
What happens if the state reissues that technology grant, we end up awarding it, and we've depleted the additional money? You no longer have the money to pay our portion of the grant, even at level A funding level.
The grant was eliminated.
No, they reissued. They
Right, and
resent out and.
a certain amount of money per student and no matching grants.
Yeah, we get 80-something thousand.
Yeah, 87 or 97, what was it?
$20 a child.
$20 a student. So that's, so.
With no matching funds, so the $800,000 grant became 82.
No, not worth that.
Right, so unfortunately, that one died.
Will the board be making the decision on what capital projects get put back in and what actually happens with that capital money? I mean, I don't feel that's discretionary. I think it's a board decision. Once we determine what we actually have, what the transfer over is, what this board wants to spend the money.
We have the risk, we can not do the Title IX softball field and buy technology.
I'm very disappointed in not doing the Title IX softball field. I think that's something we're required to do, and we should be doing it. And whatever way we can do it, I'd like to see us look at getting that done.
Well, that's why I'm saying, well, we could make that a priority to go into the new year.
The first and foremost, though, you have to do the ADA.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
You know,
The only thing we have in this year is ADA,
Okay.
No,
and the additional 100.
The boiler at Vogel Wetmore.
That's this year.
Right,
Not next year.
right.
Those aren't covered.
Yeah.
Next year, all we put forward was, Dave, next year we put forward the fuel tank and the ADA.
ADA project at the high school, right, so classrooms, yeah, the interior ADA problems up here at the high school, right.
And the fuel tank, right?
Fuel tank itself.
Right. Those are the only two projects we have next year. And we have the money to do the softball field once the other two projects wrap up.
So we'd be looking at, are we gonna be able, I didn't realize the capital give back in IT was actually our security. That wasn't how it was presented
It was,
to us.
Sue, it was cameras, right?
That was for this year. Next year, we have to make sure that we have enough money for the air conditioning in 3 of the schools and that we have safety speakers. Those are essential.
Right, but the give back this year
It
was,
was $55,000.
what was that?
That was slated for documents.
Not security cameras, docu cameras, which are
Docu
used as
cameras
part
are
of
last.
instruction.
So you are
Oh, those are
still.
security-
desktop cameras?
Yeah, security
Document
cameras.
cams that you're actually using so that kids can see materials that are going on, videotape, a bunch of different things.
Security cameras are in the security grant.
For video,
Okay,
yeah.
so the cameras are still being installed at the
The
entrance
cameras
of
are
the high
still
school?
going to be for next year. We still have the security, and we still have the air conditioning, we have to do those. Otherwise, our server rooms is gonna be a waste for you to come in.
So the security comes out of, not technology, but out of the security grants. And the document cameras come out of technology.
We're talking from this year, the other, the 55.
We were only asking about this year.
Yes.
This year's was
This
the
year,
document.
correct, yeah.
Ken, did you look into seeing if there was any state money similar to, I know you brought it up earlier, to maybe getting the softball field done?
Not just ask the administration to look into that. I haven't looked into it.
I'll look into it tomorrow.
Be nice.
Okay, action items.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Action items. Yeah, she was here. Approval of the Board of Education meeting calendar for 15-16. Fiona, second Ellen, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Fiona, Ellen, and unanimous. Okay, approval of contract for grounds work outsourcing. Dan. Is that you on? Discussion.
Yes.
We're gonna start over here, because Jessica's been very quiet today, so you go first.
Okay, I was just wondering, my primary question is, could we talk again about how we vetted these companies and why we chose Tim McDonough over Jesperson's?
Come on up.
Well, I mean, I can speak to it, because I was involved in writing
Dave, why don't you come up to the table too, just in case you can add anything. The question was if we could go through the process of how we vetted the two companies and why one was selected over the other. Okay? Right?
Yes.
Who's going first?
I don't mind, I mean,
Say it.
I was privy to the,
Yeah.
you know, to the entire process.
Actually, it's based on the RFP that we had sent out originally. There was a few requirements in there that separated the two or three vendors that came in. One of the requirements, I'll repeat that, in the RFP was the fact that it was stated in there, a state license, I believe. I don't have the RFP in front of me.
I don't either, but it was
State,
certificate for applying.
applying insecticides and
integrated
pesticides. That was part of the program. When the bids came in, I believe, and I won't, Mr. Jesperson's bid was the fact that he was going to be subcontracting it out. He wasn't licensed at the time of the bid. And the other vendor was. Am I correct in saying that?
And there's, you know, I'm just gonna say this, there's the person who weighed in on it also. There's an implied liability for having first of all, it states in the RFP that it's a requirement, so, you know. Second of all, there's an implied liability not having somebody on hand who is licensed to do those things, and bringing in a third party to do it while they may hold the certificate. It's not the vendor himself who is, so that weighed, you know, very heavily on my input. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it has to be lowest qualified bidder, so in that aspect, the bid is not qualified, and the bids were very close in cost.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I brought up at budget, I was a little bit concerned because there was a couple of different names of the company that we had gotten.
I had given that to
Because I can't
Hugh.
find any of those names with the Secretary of the State or as a business. Can we check that?
The name listed on the contract does not show up in Secretary of State.
Nor does the other one that was on the bid sheet, so I'm just not sure, and I want to just be, yeah, it's normally where I would go to look to see about a business, is there any complaints, it'll link you back, but I can't find anything that it's registered, so I'm wondering if it's that we have the name of the company wrong, or what exactly it is.
Fiona, are you referring just to McDonough or Jesperson's as well?
No, just persons I can find.
Yeah,
I
that's
can find
what
the
I
other
said.
one, but I'm not,
You can't find them, huh?
right, or the other name that was on, because remember I brought up at the budget committee, there was multiple names. and I
There's no
wasn't
results on the
sure.
Better Business Bureau's website either.
So,
Is it a new company?
His original name was Canaan Gardens. That's what
Canaan Gardens.
Canaan Gardens. Then he went under TFM.
But this name, who is the actual party, the contractor?
Tim McDonough.
That name has no license.
Now, he has, I didn't have the folder with me. His pesticide license came with the came with his application.
No, I'm not worried about this, I'm just looking at the actual entity.
So I'm thinking that is, okay.
Like the license, the insurance, are you registered with the state as an actual?
Right.
Is it all current?
Right.
No, and I don't know
I'll leave
the
that
answer,
to-
it might be that we're not looking at the right name, but
Yeah.
all of the names that were on any of our documentation over the last 5 months, I can't find on any of these things.
You said it's Canaan Gardens?
It was Canaan Gardens. It used to
That
be
would be
TF.
irrelevant.
Right. Well, I was just looking to see if that was there, that's not right.
Yeah, we can't award a
Now,
contract.
the
to a business
requirement,
that the state doesn't even recognize.
the requirement on the, if I'm not mistaken, the way we normally have done this in the past, is the requirement on the RFP is for their bid bond, their non-collusion statement. And I think those are probably, Hugh, you could probably help me out on this, the requirements there. And then once the contract is set up by us, it's up to the contractor to supply the insurance and the performance bond.
My concern is if they're not licensed and registered with the state, it really limits our recourse if something goes wrong. Everything's good if everything goes good, but if
Yeah.
something goes wrong,
Well, that's
if
where
we're
the,
hiring a company that is not registered with the state as a company, licensed with the state.
Then we're actually not, we're not signing up a company because it doesn't exist.
Right.
I don't think they
Then it
could,
becomes an individual issue if you're contracting an individual rather than a
Where these,
business.
under the personnel section of 5 on page 3, would you feel all of these have been met by?
Which one are you looking at?
When you look at the requirements, all personnel shall be in compliance with all local, state,
That's
federal.
personnel.
Well, the contractor is personnel, I assume.
His versus the
His
contractor's
the
personnel.
contractor's personnel.
It's not the contractor, it's the people who work under the contractor, that personnel.
Right, hang on a second. John?
And I'm looking at that too, but my question's a little bit different. There are gonna be kids in those buildings for all except 8 weeks, and even then, kids are in and out of that building when these people would be on premises. And I'm wondering about the kind of people that might be on the grounds, and all we're asking is that if we request it,
That was supposed to be
criminal
changed.
record checks are there, but we have to fingerprint people who wanna work with kids, right?
We asked that that be changed, that budget, when we looked at this. We had,
it was reworded in the contract.
Well,
Okay, not the one
it isn't
that we-
here,
Not the one that was handed out tonight.
it's not reworded here.
You got the right version.
Got the right version?
How much pesticide do we have?
Very, we try to limit it as much as possible. It's very little.
Currently, who does it?
Currently, in the past, TFM has put it down for us. And depending on if it's an interior, actually, I'll take that back. TFM has not. We've only used it interior through, I don't have the name on my thing.
Yeah, but that wouldn't impact the outside.
Terminators, it wouldn't be the,
So outside.
outside, we have never really put a pesticide down.
And if we did, we didn't use our current staff, we would subcontract it?
We would have to subcontract that out.
So if we,
You know,
Well, we can't approve this contract anyway if it's the wrong contract.
page 4 on laws.
Page 4.
It says laws, that contractor shall comply with the laws, rules, regulations, policies. Right? Does the state of Connecticut or any laws require that this person have this documentation as far as license and be?
Well, it depends if you're contracting with an individual or you're contracting with a company. That's what I'm not.
Well, I'm asking, do you know if there's laws that oversee this person, this company, this contractor, and have they all been met as far as registering with the state of Connecticut?
I'm confident that he is holding that license because it was supplied at the time. I don't have it with me, as I stated. I don't have that license with me, but he did have that certification.
yeah, but that's a pesticide certification, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
That
I
doesn't
have
mean-
that here.
But it-
This is this is the pesticide.
Right,
But you're
but does he
talking
need a
about
general contractor?
Who's the holder of the pesticide license?
Timothy F. McDonough.
Okay, so it's not a company, it's a person, right?
It's probably proprietary then.
I don't know how the pesticide, if it's done through a company or through a person.
It's
No,
a
you can get an
arborist
operator's
commercial
license.
supervisory pesticide
From the
applicator.
DEP.
So that's a personal license.
It's a person that's licensed.
Yeah.
I did.
Do people who perform these types of services need to have some certification in the state or a license in the state?
Yeah, through
Yeah.
the DEP. It's for an applicator operator's license, it's,
Yeah, but to do lawn mowing and grass keeping or whatever, you know, we're contracting with a business, you have to be a registered business.
Okay, well then, it says in the contract that that's the key clause.
Yeah.
You're still registered as a sole proprietor.
Not into
But he's registered under his name.
the.
Is it?
Yeah, it's registered under his name.
He's registered under his name.
Under
Subsurface sewage
Timothy-
installer as Timothy McDonald.
Sewage,
Sewage.
an individual sewage register. Smith.
Are you on the state website?
I mean, I apologize for this, I didn't
Fine.
think to look at this beforehand, but, I mean, I just feel like we should get a better understanding of what it is we're contracting with.
With the real contract.
Right, because we've never done this before, and if something goes wrong and then we find out that there's no recourse because it's not a business that offers the board some protections, then I'm worried about that.
I am.
Was there any consideration given to the fact that one's a local company and one's not? I'm not saying that Winstead's that far away.
No, basically, I just went on the grounds of the, you know, the RFP, the wording of the RFP.
And then were you able to get a physical address for the business? We talked about that at budget also.
That was on the, we had put that on the contract.
It's just a PO box. We must have, I think we still have the old contract that we reviewed at budget and asked to
Okay.
have some changes made. This isn't the most current
Double check,
contract.
yeah. All right.
Because it's still listing the PO box.
Do you know what the amount of the bond was, Mr. Potter?
I don't, I'm actually looking for the RFP right
The
now.
RFP, the bond, I believe was 5% of the bid.
Yeah, it's usually a 5%. 10% performance, 5% bid.